Good evening, everybody. Hope everybody's having a fantastic Thursday. We get this thing all launched up on every single platform. Don't forget to catch me live. I'm also on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, at Joaquin4Care. So we're also in all those platforms as well as Twitch, guys. But cool. So I think we are locked and loaded to go live. Excellent. All right, anyways, good evening again, everybody. I'm Dr. Joaquin Acosta, your trusted CEO of Pharmtrue and the passionate host of the Know Your Pharmacist live stream that you're watching tonight. We're embarking on another captivating journey connecting the dots between health, technology, and community as we dive into the truth behind a popular nasal decongestant, phenylephrine, wink, wink. We'll unravel the science and the myths that surround that. Ever wondered about the transformative power of robotics in our children's education? We've got an exciting segment that promises to both enlighten and inspire. And for our vapors out there, we're delving deep into the groundbreaking research from the Mayo Clinic that you won't want to miss. But that's not all. Our commitment to community shines bright as we spotlight the Bebop Buzz Project, a brilliant initiative introducing second graders to the world of robotics. So awesome, guys. Together, we're going to explore how these tiny robots are making a big difference in STEM education. Now, before we get started, a heartfelt shout out to all of our incredible sponsors, Pharmtrue, the Trichome Alliance, High Horse, and Vito Speedway Park. Their unwavering support allows us to bring you these enlightening episodes week after week, day after day. So whether you're here for expert insights, the latest in health and tech, or simply to connect and collaborate with the community that cares, you're in the right place. So, all right, let's get this thing going. Brainstorm, create, and embark on a journey together, guys. Let's dive on in and make this a good one. I'm going to show you guys a video right here, right above. I'm going to drop the Gala QR code here because next week there's only a week left and it's going to be a great time out at the Amador Live Interactive Dinner Playing Gala. Get your tickets. We'll put that thing back up there anyways. So we're on and it's popping on. It's going to do a little weird thing on the screen and I'm back. Cool. So above, little video real quick and we'll talk about a little bit more science after this. So, all right. And now, I'm definitely sharing my opinion on that. Guys, as a pharmacist, I really rarely ever recommend phenylephrine to people. Like, if they want it, I'm not going to talk you out of it completely, right? And as that doctor was saying up there, she's looking at she names the word decongestant, but as a pharmacist, I do look at the, decongestant properties of an antihistamine, not so the same as you look at through, right, phenylephrine or pseudoephedrine or what you supposed phenylephrine might be. And that's kind of just the funny part there, right? So talking about that, you see the Sudafed PE over the counter, and you've seen it all your life. It tricks people to think that they're getting real pseudoephedrine when it's called Sudafed, like PE, right? And it's over the counter, and it's not pseudoephedrine, which you have to get behind the counter, controlled 5, scheduled, and show your ID. And you can only buy so much per day, so much per month, depending on what state you live in. And that is regulated. So phenylephrine is not that. And that's where I think this is hilarious, because yes, I do believe that phenylephrine has always been useless. And it's kind of funny that the FDA has now come to the point of even backing that up and literally considering taking phenylephrine off the market, which phenylephrine, that's going to be, right, your generic active ingredient form of what you're looking at on your over-the-counter shelves, branded as like Sudafed PE. So I think this is a hilarious little manifesto about the uselessness of Sudafed, and the Sudafed PE products, phenylephrine, right? I'm going to share this with you above on the screen. I think this was hilarious. And this came out, funny enough, this came out last year. Like, people, not that this has not been looked at already, but what I'm saying is people have had their opinions on this for a while. And just because somebody made a article on science.com, sure, fine. But this is hilarious, right? So, article by Derek Lowe reads, paper asks a question that I've asked myself many times. Why is the phenylephrine still being sold as an oral decongestant drug? Well, okay, how we ended up in this situation, but why are we still there? Here's some chemistry and some history. First, we will examine a decongestant that actually works, pseudoephedrine. It's a natural product from plants of Ephedra genus, especially E. sinica, where it occurs along with ephedrine and other alkaloids. The SS and RR enantiomers are known as pseudoephedrine, while the SR and the RS mirror images flipped around on each other are ephedrine. They're the phenylethylamine stimulants, and there are plenty more where those came from. In fact, if you reduce that OH group and just make a methylene spacer, you have methamphetamine, which is technically also applied to the racemic pair. We're not talking about, guys, Walter White and this kind of thing here, but where you do look at this, it's just interesting to see chemically, structurally, how close all these different, active pharmaceutical ingredients are. And again, you're seeing amphetamines and those sorts of blends in medications like Adderall, right? Methamphetamine is not just crystal meth. So there are prescription medications that do, use methamphetamine, which more properly methylphenidate. Anyways, look in here. Pseudoephedrine is an adrenergic receptor ligand, but it has far less stimulating properties than methamphetamine and a better pharmacological profile than ephedrine. It's famous for drying nasal passages during cold and allergies, at which it excels. Some people still notice amphetamine-like effects of sleeplessness and jitters at doses, and at higher doses, not recommended. Pretty much everyone will. Across the board, these compounds can cause other CNS symptoms, increased blood pressure, loss of appetite, cardiac effects, difficulty urinating, and more, but the window for these does seem to be widest with pseudoephedrine. In pharmacy school, That's where I first learned people were taking Sudafed to study, and I was like, wow, interesting. And then, I've seen people take Sudafed to work. Interesting. So, people do whatever people do, but again, where you look at similar amphetamine-like effects of sleeplessness and jitters at those doses. So people were using it to try to focus and or combat sleeplessness. Now, let's look at the little brother here, which might be just booted right on out the door, phenylephrine. Here, so comparing the two. You're looking at this off, this off. As you can see, that's somewhat of a different structure, a phenyl on the aryl ring, and there's no longer a chiral methyl group between the hydroxy and the N-methyl. Nerd words, right? It also has adrenergic effects, but different and often weaker than either ephedrine or pseudoephedrine. Its main effect seems to be raising blood pressure. And it has medical uses in that area as an addition to anesthesia agents. But what it does not do well is act as a decongestant. Again, phenylephrine raises blood pressure, helps with anesthesia agents, but doesn't have decongestant effects. Where, again, pseudoephedrine, Sudafed, famous for drying nasal passages during colds and allergies, at which it excels, does it fantastically. Again, also raises the blood pressure, which phenylephrine is going to do too, minus the decongestant part. So yes, that's why the FDA came to that conclusion. But we all already knew that. As a pharmacist, I've known this, right? I don't recommend anybody phenylephrine over the counter. But some people want what they want. Some people want the ones with the blends that have it. And it is what it is. I'm not going to talk you out of it all that much, but just structurally, it's not a good decongestant, and it's not a decongestant. And again, an antihistamine might have some acetylcholinergic, anticholinergic properties, but it's not a decongestant, right? And a lot of congestion may be spurred by allergies, so that's fair. So I guess, that's a weak label there. Anyways, several controlled studies that show that it is indistinguishable from placebo conditions in allergic rhinitis. Pseudoephedrine, however, is very clearly distinguished from placebo, and in most people has very noticeable decongestant effects that last for several hours. So, when allergy season is getting bad, I'm recommending, right, any sort of Sudafed D, and you're looking, whatever it may be, Zyrtec D, Allegra D, all the generics and the mixes of them. But, Allegra D does take, granted the pseudoephedrine kicks in right away, Allegra still does take a couple of days to truly start building up in you. Like your Zyrtec D, probably going to be almost one of your best ones, right? Cetirizine and pseudoephedrine, because antihistamines help with the allergy effects, and then you have a true decongestant. Granted, you're going to be very dry feeling, but most people that come in there just runny, right? You don't want that. You want to get rid of that. You need to get back to your quality of life. So again, that's why we recommend it in those that can tolerate a little bit of a blood pressure spike. If your blood pressure is already too high, you're not eligible. That's why you see different over-the-counter options, for those people. But again, always talk to your pharmacist or doctor before, jumping in and getting anything like that. But if you're taking medications for blood pressure, you're not eligible to take, Sudafed. That's just kind of how it is. All right, guys. So moving on to tech talk. Looking at a very promising little future here for surgery from the Mayo Clinic, and I wanted to highlight this. Talking about improving surgical precision with with customized 3D printed tools. So this is cool. We're just going to watch this. I'm not even going to have to say much.
I think I knew I liked working with my hands at a very young age. My dad was a handyman and had me help him on projects. We would build decks together or install vanities in bathrooms together. And most of my journey, I think, has been sort of punctuated with these very influential people for me. Anatomy is sophisticated, the anatomy is beautiful. It's this perfect blend of aesthetic surgery and cancer surgery. Having the ability to refine a process where we are able to use things like 3D modeling and printing to be able to help us by hand rebuild somebody's jaw to make it something that's going to give a patient a better outcome. That's innovation. That's just not being satisfied with the status quo for very long, if at all. I kind of knew that I just liked seeing the way that things come together. It's kind of the beautiful thing about it.
So anyways, basically what this is Dr. Jeffrey Janus has created basically a way to do, use 3D printing to improve surgical time, surgical efficiency, whatever replicas that they're doing of precise bone, for example, jaw, is that what he was talking about there? Other things that they are talking about, thyroid cancer, parathyroid disease, getting all the way down in there, finding ways to correctly, print and, literally just improve efficiencies. And that's where, he's talking about here his team of innovation and what it really means. Well, check this out. So he says here he's working with surgical colleagues in basically ear, nose, and throat ENT to use 3D printing to enhance the process of treating head and neck cancer. And what it does is saves his patients hours in surgery while getting quicker recovery time. So as quoted by him here, it's a beautiful thing to watch multiple head and neck surgeons fulfill their role in removing the cancer and reconstructing the patient. These cases can take upwards of 12 hours without the tech and a team approach using multiple surgeons. But with 3D guides and extremely talented partners, you're giving someone a more precise surgery while simultaneously saving the patient 4 to 6 hours of surgical time, being more precise while being more efficient, ultimately better for the patient. So, cool technology, very interesting to think what sort of opportunities in surgery are going to come up and how fast they might even be out there to reduce times in surgery. I mean, just through the use of, 3D printing and whatever else comes. It's going to be very cool. This is stuff that we were not talking about 5 years ago. All right, guys, moving on. Enlightenment Hour, very interesting little resource that I do think as a pharmacist is a very important thing here. So I'm going to share this with you guys here in the chat. Up and away, safe medication storage. So when we talk about things like the opioid crisis and the opioid epidemic, do we have our medication safe at home, especially the ones that are controlled substances, right? And what are we doing to ensure that that is the case? Well, CDC is promoting their work on this, and I'm just showing you the screen here. Sorry to make it big. It always has to do that for whatever reason, but talking about keeping the meds out of reach, away, Teaching your child, telling your guests, avoiding a trip to the emergency room. Approximately 35,000 young children are brought to the emergency room each year because they got into medicines that were left within reach. Are all of your medicines kept somewhere safe? Well, very interesting. Let's watch this video.
My son was sick and we took him to the doctor and we got medicine, which gave us direction to give once at night and once in the morning. I had 2 vials of medicine and I set them on top of the nightstand. That morning, I gave him his first dose for the day. I stepped out of the room for just a few seconds. I came back in the room and realized that he had taken the other vial as well.
I was in the kitchen and then all of a sudden, so he comes and says, you know what? Max just took a double dosage of medicine. I just got scared.
I asked Max, did he take the second vial? And he said yes. This can happen to anybody, anyone who has kids, anyone who has medications in the house. Our house was already childproof, and now we take extra care of putting the medicine up and away.
When the children are not at school, they spend most of their time at their grandparents' house.
I myself take medication 3 times a day. I keep my medication up and away from the kids so they won't touch them.
Even between doses, all medicines should be kept up and away. It only takes a few seconds.
And right, as we all think it's standard, it's very, very easy to get complacent. So, doing things to pick a place that children cannot reach, right? Never leave loose pills or liquid medicine out on a counter table or bedside. Just things, that we are absolutely mindful of. And that also comes to things like cannabis, right? Nowadays. And it's just very, very important because you don't want to put things in an accessible place for the wrong hands. So, child-resistant containers are important for a reason, right? When you look at the tops, unless you have, issues taking it off, probably should just keep those safety-resistant containers on, especially if you've got kids around, right? So, just to be mindful of. You never know, especially that you may be on the questionable side of a situation, even in your home. So it's a good resource. You can jump in, grab the, coloring book and help to teach children and go through it. I think it's awesome to try to create those conversations with a guide right behind you. So it's awesome. Downloading tips for grandparents, for travel, telling guests and reminding them to keep purses, bags, or coats that have medicine in them up and away and out of sight when they're in your home. So even for traveling, right? If you bring your medicines with you to a home with young children, don't be shy about asking for a place to put your medicines that is out of reach and sight for curious kids. So seems like gimme, but good reminders there. Enlightenment Hour want to make sure that everybody gets touched on in the manner that they do deserve. Absolutely. So cool. Coming up next, guys, talking about in our Herbal Wellness Corner, brought to you by High Horse Cannabis Company. Give a little bit of information here for vape and e-cigarette users age 18 to 45. There's a research study with Mayo Clinic that is paying. So, if you use vape or e-cigs or know somebody who does, might as well, consider to get paid for it. I'm going to put this up here on the screen, or, putting this on the screen here so you can see the information, but also it's in the chat. So if you know anybody who vapes, who might want to just, make money for vaping, be a part of this study for Mayo Clinic. There it is right there. So I want to make sure that we promote that. And why? Why is it important? Why are we trying to still learn about all this and get this all taken care of, right? Vaping has been around since 2003 and has become increasingly popular. And now in 2021, there were 82 million e-cigarette users globally compared to 1.1 billion cigarette smokers. So, it is more common among teens, so our vulnerable population, than smoking cigarettes. According to a national youth tobacco survey, 21% of high school and middle school students in the United States vape e-cigs, compared to 8% who smoke regular cigarettes. However, the CDC reports that vaping rates continue to rise and are nearing, the highest levels that they've ever been, which was at pre-pandemic levels. What can we do? So, first thing that we can do is learn. That's why I wanted to make sure to put the research available there for anybody who thinks that they might, qualify for the study. You can get paid for vaping, be a part of something bigger than yourself. What could you tell teenagers that would happen to their lungs or what might happen to their life by using it? There could be serious life-threatening lung disease for teenagers to incur. Popcorn lung, look that up. What sort of chemicals are in whatever made that vape, right? Could be formaldehyde. Formaldehyde can cause cancer. Acrolein, irreversible lung damage. Even flavorings can do that. Tell your kid sucking on that cancer stick, the more flavorful the cancer, right? And it not in that way, right? It's feels like you want to be old school and come down on people, but it's just like, well, think about it. You truly have to put chemicals that have to construct whatever it is to make you feel however it feels. And what happens after that? Your lungs process the rest. Extreme nicotine addiction from extremely high levels of nicotine that are, easy to hide in a vape, especially with flavors. What does it do? Increase heart rate, blood pressure, hurts the immune system. So help somebody out, share the study. Mayo Clinic looking for participants age 18 to 45, and you could get paid if you actually do use nicotine and meet whatever their qualifications are. Good enough. Lovely. Okay, guys, moving on to the community spotlight. Highlighting here an effort called Bebot Buzz, Robotics for East Picacho second graders. Someone who's close to my heart, an old teacher of mine, shared this, Miss Carrione. It's going to pop up on the screen, I think, briefly. Bam, bam. So again, Sergio Tamez from Las Cruces, New Mexico, requesting instructional technology through Donors Choose, the most trusted classroom funding site for teachers. Bebot Buzz, empowering the next generation with robotics. Help me give my students Bebot for empowering youth minds with robotics. So here, Bebot project aims to introduce young students to the exciting world of robotics and programming through the use of Bebot robots. Bebot is a child-friendly, programmable flow robot that offers a hands-on way for children to learn about sequencing, problem-solving, basic coding concepts in a fun, engaging manner. So, cool. Yes, by funding the project, you provide access to Bebot robots related to educational resources to second grade students at East Picacho Elementary School fostering an interest in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics subjects, and enhance critical thinking, problem solving, and teamwork skills. Project will promote inclusive learning environments where all students can participate and succeed. Using B-Bots empowers teachers and students with the tools, training to effectively integrate robotics into their curriculum. Students will also learn literacy and culture with the help of B-Bots. Now, I think it's very cool. I wanted to share it with everybody because think about it as a state where we are right now in our educational status, not too great, towards the back. What could things that we do when our poor teachers get the kind of run into the stick there on top of our students? How do you make things better? Teachers are out there trying to make things better. So I put that in the chat here for B-Bots. Look it up. My old elementary school, so that's cool. Robot them up. Last thing for our Men's Health Minute, guys, tonight, talking about managing male urinary incontinence and talking about the pharmacist role. What does the pharmacist do to help manage male urinary incontinence? Interestingly enough, decent amount of stuff. At least the U.S. pharmacists think so. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen just so you guys can see what I'm showing you here. I think it's useful so you don't think I'm just making things up. All right, so pharmacist role in managing male urinary incontinence. Look in here. What do pharmacists do? What is male urinary incontinence? Well, as described in literature, functional overflow, stress, urge, and mixed. While urinary incontinence is less prevalent in men than women, older adults of both sexes often experience lower urinary tract symptoms associated with overflow incontinence. Without adequate treatment, patients can develop a negative perception and experience poor quality of life. Iatrogenic UI is typically reversible and implicates drug classes that impair urine flow, bladder contractions, or cognition. Right? Anticholinergics, Beer's criteria. What is happening there? Non-pharmacological therapies tempted for mild UI, whereas moderate to severe symptoms require medication, surgery, depending on predominating symptomology. So, anyways, giving you guys here the role of what pharmacists are looking at when you're looking at urinary incontinence, because this might be out of, an oncology pharmacist who is going to see this from probably the prostate cancer, side and a lot of sides. However, pharmacists are also out there in the community treating patients, in different facets than maybe in an oncology clinic that I'm sure you can imagine without me having to describe it. So anyways, what does this mean? Looking at the diagnosis of UI. Well, you know what alcohol does? Works here. Right? Take a good look. Because not only you have alcohol, you have opioids, you have alpha blockers, different drugs that may be causing different inputs that could be worsening things like, UI. And so here, a diaper's mnemonic and the patient's medication should be reviewed in the differential diagnosis of transient and reversible UI. So granted, pharmacists are not all following the diaper's, mnemonic every single time here. That's not how that's working. But we might have been trained differently to look at Beer's criteria drugs and know the different side effects for the drug. So I hadn't, necessarily seen the diaper's mnemonic before seeing, this breakdown here. But I like, the patient education part, because where pharmacists come in, and you're looking at the different classes of medications, And we're not going to go over a boring pharmacological lessons about the different agents and how they might be taken, right? Antimuscarinics and things like that. What is good to know is that pharmacists do different types of patient education to help with UI. And if you do have difficulties urinating as a man, pharmacist is an easy person to ask about, well, what might be causing that? Because there might be different things in life that, you can look at all these inputs that can cause different types of UI, whether if it's functional, overflow, stress, or urge, increase urine flow and bladder contractions as diuretics and alcohol do, right? I mean, we know that. But again, do you know what's causing relaxation? Do you know what's causing fluid retention? So a lot of different factors there that you might just be putting your entire bladder and ureters on overdrive there, especially on a weak one or an old one. But pharmacists can help there. Someone that you might not consider the top of your male urinary incontinence, question list person there. But especially if you're taking medications, whether it's over the counter or not, worth talking about. Cool. All right, guys. So we're leaving this one. Hope everybody has a fantastic evening. We will see you guys tomorrow.